For years, I thought that my mind was working against me. And in many ways, it kind of was, because I wasn't taking my thoughts captive by any means. It honestly felt like a war zone in my head. One moment, I'd feel strong and capable and beautiful. And the next, I would be spiraling into shame, fear, or obsessive thoughts about my body. Hi friend, welcome back. I want to continue to share the 8 main lessons that I've learned through my recovery journey. Over the past 4 years, I've experienced so much transformation. In fact, I kind of feel like literally a different version of myself than the person who started. For those of you who don't know my journey or weren't following my story in years past, I had been fighting my way through recovery from an eating disorder for several years. It was something that I was so passionate about and really wanted to find freedom from, but it was a hard and arduous journey. In the last 4 years, I was able to really fully commit myself to my own recovery journey, and I was finally able to fully break free. I'm not talking about quasi-recovery. I'm talking about my eating disorder is something of the past. I no longer struggle with my eating disorder, and I also in many ways feel like my brain is a whole new brain. I just don't function the same way. I think differently, I act differently, and I honestly have grown so much in my faith because so much of the things that I knew in my head, I now have embodied for myself. Friend, there were so many things that played into my recovery journey and got me to the place where I am now today. But there are 8 main lessons that I really harnessed these last 4 years that really got me to the finish line. I want to share them with you too so that you can benefit from them, so that you can harness the power of these things and maybe even avoid learning the lessons the hard way like I did. In part 1, we covered some big shifts that empowered me to slay a dragon that I had been battling for years. I fully recovered from my eating disorder. The mindsets that I discussed in part 1 are things that you can also harness to fight forward in your own journey as well. But the next 4 lessons that I'm going to be talking about in part 2, these lessons might be the ones that challenge you the most. If you haven't watched that first video yet, no worries. You can jump in right here and go back to watch the others. The link to that first video is down below in the show notes, so go ahead and click on that link to have a watch when you have some time. But today, we're talking about the kinds of lessons that don't just change how you think, but change how you live. Ready, friend? Let's get into it. In the first video, I ended with lesson number 4, the lesson that taught us that we can't think our way to freedom, we need to live it. Lesson number 5 takes this concept a bit further. The lesson I want to discuss here is how your mind can be a pathway to freedom, or it can be a prison. For so long, I was imprisoned by my own thoughts. In many ways, my inner critic ran the show. My thoughts would run wild with things that would drive me crazy. Thoughts like, what do they think of me? What if I'm not enough? What if I fail and look foolish? What if I disappoint God? What if I miss out on my purpose in life? What if people don't like me if they see the real me? What if people pity me if they see the things that I'm really struggling with? My thoughts kept me locked up in this internal prison, trapped in fear, self-doubt, and comparison. For years, I thought that my mind was working against me. And in many ways, it kind of was, because I wasn't taking my thoughts captive by any means. It honestly felt like a war zone in my head. One moment, I'd feel strong and capable and beautiful. And the next, I would be spiraling into shame, fear, or obsessive thoughts about my body. Ultimately, this led me to self-sabotage and got me stuck in bad habits that I just needed to break. My thoughts imprisoned me. They didn't allow me to live in freedom, let alone confidence. And they were stealing away from the potential that God had for me. During my healing journey, I learned something that was so life-changing. My mind and your mind is not the enemy. It's a tool. God designed our minds to work for us, not against us. But in order for that to happen, we need to train our minds with truth. We need to stop believing the lies that keeps us stuck in our internal prisons and causes us to self-sabotage. When we let our minds be ruled by our emotions, by the wounds of our past, the fear of what other people think, the voice of that mean inner critic, Friend, we stay stuck. We can literally start to rewire our brains and the way that our thoughts actually operate. We can do this by taking action on God's truth, not just intellectually knowing it. The more we commit ourselves to discerning the truth and throwing out the lies and taking action on the things that we know to be true, even when it feels uncomfortable, the more we literally can rewire our brains to have new default thought habits. In other words, our brain starts to have new habits, new first thoughts that pop up. Friend, when we start to train our brains and tell it what to believe and the patterns that we want it to follow, we can stop living in survival mode and start living into the fullness of what God has for us. Training our minds to know the truth and then following it up with action helps us create new default thought habits that lead to freedom, joy, and confidence instead of insecurity, shame, and fear. Your mind can be a tool. It doesn't have to be the enemy. The thing is, just like any tool, we need to learn how to use it, and we need to be trained to make sure it serves the right purpose. During my eating disorder recovery journey, I started to notice how automatic my thought life was. I could wake up on a beautiful day and feel totally awesome, but then one glimpse in the mirror and I would find myself spiraling into self-hatred. Or I'd walk into a room and I'd feel like I didn't measure up, and my brain would just launch into a barrage of lies, telling me things like, "You're so embarrassing. People are judging you. No one wants you here. Who do you think you are? You are so underqualified." At one point, I was in a session with my therapist, talking through the latest self-defeating lie that was really just doing a number on my insides. As I was chatting with her, she asked me, what if the goal wasn't to stop every negative thought, but to respond differently? That question shifted things. I realized, oh my gosh, my thoughts aren't necessarily true. I have a thought, but it doesn't mean that it's true. A thought is really just like a statement in my mind. Kind of like a gossip column, kind of like a computer just sputtering out information. My thoughts aren't necessarily true. I mean, I kind of knew that. I knew we had to take our thoughts captive and that there were lies that were constantly flowing through our minds. But the way that I was living was that I'd have a thought and it would feel so true, so I would just believe the thought. I didn't really challenge it. My feelings were interpreting thoughts as truth, even though they had no validity. The more I started to think about my thoughts as merely a sentence in my mind, a neutral statement, something that I need to validate further, gosh, friend, it was so transformational. What helped me is trying to think of it this way. A thought is just a thought. It's a sentence. It's a statement in your mind, a claim that your mind is making. Even if you have feelings that say, holy crap, this thought has to be true, it doesn't mean that it is. Our thoughts can be manipulated by the enemy. Our thoughts can be influenced by so many things. Not only our feelings, but our past traumas, our childhoods, the people that we're hanging around. There is so much information that we're taking in that then impacts our thoughts. There are so many things that cloud our perspectives. Our thoughts are continually sputtering out random statements. Some of them conflict with each other and make no sense at all. The more we can start to realize this is only information. This is just a statement in my mind. This is just my brain firing out an assumption. Then we can start to unhook from those thoughts and analyze them more deeply. We don't need to stop the negative thoughts. We just need to change our relationship with how we react to them. Here's what's wild about your brain. It is designed to change. Have you ever heard of neuroplasticity? Basically, it's a sciencey way of saying that your brain is moldable. You can change it through different actions. The more you repeat a thought and then take action on it, the more it becomes your brain's default. The more we live into truth, the more we show our brains, hey, this is the truth, this is the way that we're going to act, the more we start to have brains that are wired toward freedom and confidence instead of fear. Okay, so let's take this concept and actually put it into actual real use. So here's what I want you to do. Think about one mental loop that has been keeping you stuck. Maybe it's body image, with thoughts like, I'll never be happy in this body. Or maybe it's the fear of failure. I'll never get this right, so why even try? Or maybe it's comparison, thinking things like, everyone is killing it and I'm so far behind. Friend, hear me. You are not weak or crazy for thinking these things, but you don't have to stay stuck there. Here's your action step for today. First, identify the thought loop. Where does your mind go when it's on autopilot? What thoughts are just sputtering out of your mind? Second, examine that thought. Bring it into the light of God's truth. And if it's not true, replace the lie with truth. For example, if you think my body sucks and I'm never going to find love, take hold of the truth that says, my body is not the enemy. God doesn't judge me by my appearance. He judges by my character. I am more than my appearance. Third, take a small action step that aligns with that truth. Remember, we need to train our brains. Our brains are watching our actions. If we think the truth, but then we live in accordance with the lie, our brain is just going to stay on autopilot in that lie. We need to train our brains to think differently. We need to show our brains that we mean business, that there is a new thought life that we want to have, and we're going to continue to take these small actions until it gets on board. So think about that mental loop that's keeping you stuck. Choose one small action step that shows your brain, I believe this truth, not that lie. So carrying on with the body image example, to show yourself that you are more than your appearance, take a small action that supports that truth. For example, speak kind words to your body and start to have gratitude for the things that it actually does for you. Remind yourself that the Bible tells us that your body is merely a vessel, allowing you to move through this world and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Rather than nitpicking the parts of your body that you don't like, start to think about why you're grateful for them. Think of what your body can do for you rather than what it doesn't look like. For example, if your thighs are a triggering area for you, think about how grateful you are that you can walk, that you can explore the city, or take a hike outside. Think about that mental loop that is keeping you stuck, and then take action to live out the truth. So in summary, first, name the toxic thought loop. What is keeping you stuck? Next, go to Scripture, go to God's truth, examine that thought, and replace any lies with truth. And then lastly, take that truth and put it into action. This is how we change our thought life. Rewiring our brains to have new thought habits is a process. The truth is, it is hard at first. It is kind of a grind at first. But just like starting anything new, the more muscle memory we build, the easier it gets. And don't forget, this work is holy work. Don't forget to see the bigger picture here. Renewing our minds is so worth it. It's basically like us drawing a line in the sand and saying to the enemy, you can't have my mind anymore. This is God's territory, and I am claiming what is true. I am taking back what is rightfully mine. You don't have to be perfect at this, friend. You just have to keep practicing. Every time you take a toxic thought and stop it in its tracks and choose to live into truth instead, you are literally reshaping your mind to think differently. Your mind doesn't have to be a prison, friend. It can be a pathway to peace, freedom, confidence, and deeper faith. But it won't get there on its own. You have to train it. With God's help, you can train your mind to create new default thought habits that align with who God says you are. Over time, the more you do this, those new thought patterns will become your new normal. Instead of having a mind that is constantly fighting against you, you can harness God's truth to have a mind that fights for you. Okay, on to lesson number 6. Your struggles are not a life sentence. There is an after to this. For years, I worried, what if I never fully recover? What if this struggle is just my life now? And I know I am not the only one to have these thoughts. But I need you to hear this, friend. Your struggles are not forever. Full healing is real. There really is a future version of yourself who is free, whole, and walking in confidence. One day, what feels impossible right now will just be a part of your before story. But to get there, you have to keep fighting forward. One of the biggest lessons that God showed me during my season of recovery was that the behind-the-scenes work matters. About 4 years ago, I was in the process of deep inner healing. Like I mentioned, I stepped away 4 years ago to really focus fully on my recovery. I focused my time and energy working with a recovery coach to finally break free, for real. The thing is, none of that soul work was public. No one was watching. No one was applauding. I was pretty much a ghost on every single social media platform. But the thing is, God saw it all, and He showed me the healing work that I was doing wasn't a break from my calling. It was my calling in that season. Everything I was going through, every moment I was wrestling, surrendering, healing, every little bit of it was shaping me into the person He needed me to be for the next part of my journey. Friend, the middle season of any kind of recovery journey is hard. If that's where you find yourself today, if you feel like you're in a season of waiting or healing or simply wondering if God is even using you right now, I want you to hear this. Sometimes your calling doesn't look like doing for God. Sometimes your calling looks like becoming. If God has asked you to push pause or step back from something that you thought was your mission, or if He asks you to take that step with no visible reward, or focus on your own healing before you can pour into others, friend, trust that He is still at work in you. The thing is, God doesn't waste any part of our journeys. With God, nothing is for nothing. He has a plan for you, and His timing is perfect. Whatever you're walking through, God will finish the good work He's doing in you so He can then work through you to help other people. Friend, God is in the business of taking our pain and transforming it into purpose. He knows what He's doing and He wants to use us, but sometimes He needs us to take a step back and do the behind-the-scenes recovery work in order to get to the place where He can use us. Friend, I want you to take courage. I want you to hang on to the hope that one day you will look back and think, whoa, God's fingerprints were all over my journey. He knew exactly what He was doing, even though I couldn't see it. And oh my gosh, His timing was perfect. I am so glad He didn't listen to me and what I thought was right, because it totally worked out just as it should. And friend, I can bet that you are going to be able to say, holy crap, it was all worth it. That thing you're struggling with day in and day out, well, I'm sure it feels never ending. I know for me, that's the way it felt. Right now, I want you to think of that thing that feels like a struggle that is never ending. The thorn in your side that makes you wonder, will I ever get over this? For example, maybe it's a battle with terrible body image or your self-worth. Maybe it's a cycle of anxiety or self-doubt or fear. Or maybe it's a habit or mindset that you just can't seem to break. Here's a challenge for you. First, rewrite that narrative. Take a look at how you're talking to yourself about your story and change it for the better. Instead of saying things like, this is just who I am, try, this is just a season, this is not my identity. Or instead of saying, I'll never be free, try, God is leading me toward healing step by step. Next, after rewriting your narrative and your self-talk, then find evidence of progress. Look back at where you were a year ago. What's changed? What's shifted? Even small things count. What evidence do you have from your past that God is already at work? Use these things to motivate yourself and show your brain, oh yeah, I'm actually changing and I'm going to keep fighting forward. And then lastly, take one small step forward. Remember, friend, we change through action. What is one small thing that you can do today that your future self will thank you for? Maybe it's eating that fear food despite the terror in your mind. Maybe it's choosing to speak truth over yourself whenever you hear a self-critical thought pop up. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend to say, hey, I'm struggling, instead of just trying to fight through it alone. Friend, your struggles are not a life sentence. There is an after to this, but you have to keep moving forward. Just take one small step at a time. Every step counts, and they all add up. Okay, so now let's move on to lesson number 7. This was something that I struggled with a lot when God asked me to push pause and step away 4 years ago. The lesson is this: rest doesn't mean giving up. Sometimes it's the assignment. Oh my gosh, for so long, I believed I can't take a break. If I do that, I'll lose progress. I'll fall behind. I'll disappoint people. They're expecting me to show up. Or you know what? I might even disappoint God because He has a plan for me, and I can't live into my purpose without taking action, right? Friend, I thought that purpose meant striving, constantly pushing forward, showing up, doing more. Because isn't that what progress looks like? You have a dream or you have a goal, and then you push yourself to make progress toward that goal. And the harder and the faster you push, the quicker you'll get there, right? Well, friend, I was totally wrong. My perspective was totally messed up. Here's what I learned instead. Rest isn't actually the opposite of progress. It's part of it. For me, if I hadn't taken a break, I wouldn't have had the space to fully heal. When I first stepped away from social media and pushed pause on pursuing that dream I had for coaching, I felt lazy, irresponsible, like I was falling behind. I was terrified that stepping back meant giving up the dream that I had deep inside. But in reality, God was having me stop so I could rest, heal, and fully live into all the things that I had been learning. Truthfully, I had been pursuing my calling running on empty. I was trying to continually pour out of a cup that wasn't just low, it was bone dry. I wanted to be at a place where I could just press into that big calling that I felt God had for me. But what I didn't realize at the time was that there was more growth that I had to do in order to move on to that next phase of my life. Here's a truth that changed everything for me. Rest is not a step backward. Rest is not giving up on your calling. In a lot of ways, rest is actually the foundation of everything God is building in you. Rest allows us to really focus on the thing that truly matters, the most important thing, which is our relationship with God. Instead of striving for our worth or proving how awesome we are, rest allows us to reshift our priorities and make sure that when we are pouring up, well, first of all, that we have enough to pour out, but also that when we're pouring out and serving other people, that it's coming from a good place. When we strive and don't rest and continue to push forward, it's so easy to click into that old self behavior that tells us that we need to strive for worthiness and prove our worth. Work and even serving others can start to be this thing that we use to make ourselves feel like we matter in this world. In my own personal journey, when I took a step back and wasn't producing or pushing things out into the world and stopped striving after that dream that I had, I was faced with the hard truth that in ways unbeknownst to me, I was really putting my identity in my work. I truly only felt as valuable as what I was putting out there. I struggled with feeling like, if I'm not helping people, then what am I even here for? During my season of rest, God really started to reprioritize my loves. I started to see my identity as being rooted fully in Him. I was able to really harness the truth that even if I never produced one more thing, God still loved me fiercely. I learned that God doesn't love me because of what I do for Him. God loves me. When our work and our callings flow from a place of knowing that we are not gaining worth or value in God's eyes, it comes from the right place, and it comes from a place of overflow. Rest helped me fully grasp the truth that I cannot earn God's love and I have nothing to prove to anyone else. Friend, it's hard to live into the truth that we don't need to strive or prove ourselves to be worthy, because that is the messaging that we are receiving every single day in this world. That is why I invite you into rest in some capacity, whether that looks like trying to think about a better work-life balance, spending some more time in scripture in the mornings, taking a Sabbath on Saturday or Sunday or some other day during the week. Whatever that looks like, I encourage you to take some rest. Because when we take some time to slow down, we can take a hard look at our lived out realities. Maybe like me, you'll start to see, holy crap, I've got this itch to work. If I'm not producing, I don't feel valuable. Well, that's something that we want to examine with God. Friend, maybe you need to hear this today. Stepping back doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means that you're trusting God's timing is better than yours. If God has asked you to slow down when you'd rather keep on pushing, or like me, to step back from something you thought was your mission, or take a season to heal instead of hustle, then trust that God is still at work in you. Because sometimes rest is the assignment. Sometimes the work He wants to do through you is more behind the scenes. So I want you to ask yourself, am I resisting rest in any way? Could I be resisting rest because I feel guilty for slowing down? Have I been measuring my worth by how much I do rather than who I'm becoming? What if rest in this season is actually preparation for what's next? Friend, here's your challenge. If you feel like God has been calling you to step back and heal, trust that He is still working. If you've been in a hidden season, know that no growth is wasted. And if you need permission to rest, here it is. Rest is not a step backward. It is part of your healing too, because God always finishes what he starts, and your story, it's not over yet. Okay, so last, on to lesson number 8. Healing happens when you stop hiding. We need community. One of the biggest turning points in my journey was when I finally brought my struggles to light. For so long, I carried them alone. I was afraid that if anyone knew what I was really going through, they'd see me differently. I chose to suffer in hiding because I believed if people knew the real me, they'd leave. If I was honest about my struggles, I'd be judged. If I let my guard down, I'd get hurt. I did what so many of us do. I tried to avoid my pain and problems. For example, I wore the mask of I'm fine. I kept my struggles hidden and tried not even to look at them myself. I convinced myself that I could just figure it out on my own. At times, I even believed the lie that I could just ignore my problems and they would just go away on their own. I resisted getting real and acknowledging my problems because, oh my gosh, it felt terrifying. Not only was it excruciating to face the hard truth that I was no longer in control of my problem, but it was actually controlling me, but I was also mortified. Shame made me feel like healing was something that I had to work through on my own before I could let anyone else know about my problems. I couldn't let other people see my mess. I at least had to make some progress before I told anyone about it. And on top of that noise, I also had pride that told me, I can't ask for help. I'm the person who helps other people. I don't judge people for needing help, but I wasn't one of them. Boy, was that a self-defensive and self-destructive lie. Here is the actual truth, friend. Healing isn't a solo journey. You can't heal in isolation. In fact, isolation only makes things worse. And you definitely can't heal pretending to be something that you're not. Healing happens when we start to be radically honest. I couldn't escape my secret struggles until I exposed my real to other people. When we are honest with those who love us and those who understand our unique struggles, shame starts to lose its power, friend. Because the truth is, we weren't created to heal in isolation. God literally designed us for community. Our triune God is himself community. You're meant to do life with others, and you don't need to heal alone. As I mentioned, personally, I kept my deepest struggles to myself for years. I thought that if I just prayed harder, worked on myself more, read all the right books, I could heal privately. Because letting other people see my mess, that felt terrifying. But the problem was, shame thrives in secret. The more I kept my struggles hidden and to myself, the stronger they became. It wasn't until I let trusted people into my journey, people who saw the real me and didn't flinch, that I realized something powerful. My struggles weren't too much. My pain didn't make me unlovable. And healing wasn't something I had to do alone. Here's what getting real and taking off the mask looked like for me. First, it looked like getting honest with myself. I had to stop believing the lie that said, I can stop this thing when I feel like it. I had to stop putting off change as tomorrow's problems. I had to get real and admit, this isn't working and I need help. After getting real with myself, next I had to get real with God. I had to admit that my secret sins weren't just hurting me, they were afflicting God himself. I had to stop running and face my struggles head on. And contrary to my fears, when I laid everything out before God, it didn't feel like shame. It felt like a relief. God wasn't mad at me. He wasn't disappointed. He was tender and gentle. It felt more like a, come here, child. I've been waiting for you. I've been chasing after you, my sweet girl. He wasn't condemning me. He was calling me home. After getting real with God, I finally had to get real with others. I know it can feel tempting to keep things between you and God, but this part is crucial. Remember, God designed us for community. We are built for relationships. When we expose our shame to safe, trustworthy people, darkness starts to lose its power over us. Something powerful happens when we hear things like, me too, or you're not alone in this, or I'm here for you, friend. Chains start to break when we realize others are going through the same thing and they just get it. No explanation necessary. Things start to shift when we realize we aren't fighting alone. We have others fighting alongside us. And when we look ahead to others who have walked the same road before or are a few steps ahead of us, it gives us hope. Proof even that healing is possible. Because when we see their breakthroughs, we start to believe that it's possible for us too. The world tells us if you just looked better, worked harder, or improved yourself enough, then you'll be happy. But the reality is, you will never feel worthy if your worth is based on something external. Healing isn't about becoming someone else who's more impressive. It's about returning to who you were always meant to be, the person God created you to be. And that process all starts when we drop the mask and step into the light of community. We need spaces where we can expose our darkness, be vulnerable, and tell the truth about what we're actually going through, and to do so without the fear of rejection. We need people who sit with us in whatever darkness we're in and remind us that we're not too much, we're not too broken, we're not beyond hope. Friend, maybe you need to hear this today. You were not meant to carry this alone, whatever this is. There are safe people who will ease your burdens and help you walk to your own breakthrough, but you have to be willing to take off the mask. Pretending to be okay doesn't make you okay. And trying to fix yourself like I did before letting other people in, that just keeps you stuck. Healing starts when you let other trusted people into your story, speak your shame out loud, and allow yourself to be fully seen, mess and all. The moment you stop hiding is the moment shame starts to lose its power and true healing begins. So, knowing the power of unmasked honesty, here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself, am I keeping my struggles secret because I'm afraid of being judged? Have I been convincing myself that I need to heal alone? What would it look like to invite someone into my journey today? I want you to also think about one of the struggles that you've been trying to carry alone. Maybe it's body image struggles, constantly fixating on your weight or appearance. Or maybe it's comparison and insecurity, feeling like you're never enough. Or maybe it looks more like the fear of failure, holding back because you're afraid of what other people might think. Here's your challenge, friend. I want you to find one safe space, a trusted friend, a mentor, a coach, a support group, somewhere where you can be honest about your struggle. After you find your safe space, speak your shame out loud. Say the thing that you've been afraid to admit. Let go of the pressure of trying to be put together before you let people into your journey. In fact, put the shoe on the other foot. Think about how you'd feel if someone else took off their mask and got real with you about their struggles. If you're like me, you wouldn't scoff at their brokenness. In fact, you'd feel honored that they came to you. You would respect them for being honest. You'd feel compelled toward compassion and a desire to support them. The same goes for you with others. Remember that. People want to be there for you. And then, after exposing your truth in the light with that other person, notice how it starts to lose its power over you. That's the awesome thing about community. When we stop hiding, shame loses its power over us. Freedom begins when you start letting yourself be seen. Because real freedom doesn't come from pretending you're okay or showing up as a polished version of yourself. It comes from knowing it's okay not to be okay and letting people love you there anyway. That's where true healing begins. Okay, so there you have it, friend. 8 lessons that I learned from this past season of stepping back, pressing in, and allowing God to change me by seeing things in a whole new light. If one of these lessons resonated with you most, I would love to hear about which one. Let me know in the comments and hit that like button below. Or if you know a friend who needs to hear this message, hit that share button so they can have a listen as well. Oh, and also, if you're ready to go deeper and learn how to trade self-doubt for confidence, hit subscribe because I have so much more to share about breaking free from fear, perfectionism, self-doubt, body image, that inner critic voice, and the fear of what others think. Friend, you deserve to be free from all of that garbage so you can experience true confidence and freedom and play bigger in this world. The truth is, the world needs what you have to offer, so stop letting darkness steal from your light. I am so glad to be back with you, friend. I'll see you in the next video.